Hello everybody, today is 17th of March. My name is Sahil and welcome to the newspaper analysis. Now guys, first of all, let's have a look on today's GS folder. Today we'll take a quote from the missile man of India and former president of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. He says, knowledge without action is useless and irrelevant. Knowledge with action converts adversity into prosperity. Now here, Dr. Kalam has talked about converting the thoughts into the action so that a mere wishful thinking is not the end result. Now, guys, you can utilize this particular idea into the relevant essays. So that is all. And now let's take the newspaper analysis in detail. So, taking up the first article in today's newspaper analysis. Now, friends, this article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper and it talks about the bill that has been introduced into the Lok Sabha with respect to the management of National Capital Territory of Delhi. Now, before going into this particular article, let's take some of the background information. Now, when we talk about the Union Territory into India, they are dealt under Article number 239 to 241 into the Part 8 of the Indian Constitution. Now you might be knowing that the union territories they are different from the state because into the union territory central government has substantial say into their matters and the president has substantial responsibilities to be filled into the context of the union territory. Now when we talk particularly about the Delhi, this union territory has been taken under article 239 AA, which was particularly inserted after the 69th constitutional amendment act. Now, guys, here the special status have been given to the Delhi, which will be having a legislative assembly of 70 members. Then there have been given the power to the legislative assembly that they can make law onto the state list as well as a concurrent list. But into the state list, there are the three subjects onto which they cannot make the law. That is the land, the police, as well as public order. So therefore, we can see that the Union Territory of Delhi has been given a considerable autonomy onto the lines of state, but still the control of the center has been preserved onto the Union Territory. Further, the 1969th Constitutional Amendment Act, it also provided that the administrator of the Delhi will be redesignated as the Lieutenant Governor for the Delhi. Now, into this the spirit of the 69th Constitutional Amendment Act and Article 239 AA, the governance of the Delhi is being carried. But into the last few years, it has been seen that there are increasing tussle between the elected government of the Delhi and between the lieutenant governor of the Delhi. It has been seen that many of the times the lieutenant governor has used his discretionary power, or many of the bills that has been passed by the legislative assembly, they have been reserved by the LG for the reference to the president of India. And onto this particular thing, the tussles have increased, and therefore into this particular direction in 2018 Supreme Court also gave the judgment into this particular manner. Supreme Court provided that the lieutenant governor is bound by the aid and advice of the Delhi government and therefore he should respect it. Moreover, the matters with respect to the day to day governance should not be referred to the president because it undermines the authority of the constitutionally elected government. And now, guys, coming back to 2021, what is happening presently? The government has introduced, particularly the Ministry of Home Affairs, had introduced a bill into the Lok Sabha by the name of Government of NCT of Delhi Amendment Bill 2021. And the objective of this bill is to clarify the power structure between the government as well as LG. Now, guys, it is clearly an attempt to undermine the 2018 direction as well as it is also a kind of a way to give more power to the LG. Now here just let's have a look on brief provisions. So first of all, the provision is that the expression government will mean the lieutenant governor. So guys, by this particular thing, automatically wherever the aid and advice, pleasure, discretion of government has been mentioned, it will come into the domain of the LG. Then it has been provided that the assembly will not make any rule or will not enable itself or to its committees to consider the matters of day-to-day administration of the capital. So it is also again in a way of stripping down of the powers of the government. Then it has been provided that before taking any executive action or before dwelling into any kind of policy, the suggestion or the opinion of the lieutenant governor or administrator is to be taken. After that, the next clause is that when a bill will be passed by the assembly of the Delhi, it will be presented to the LG and he can give the assent to the bill, can disapprove the bill, or can also reserve the bill for the president's consideration. Now, guys, this particular thing is there to undo the Supreme Court's ruling where Supreme Court said that the day-to-day matters should not be referred to the president. And then, guys, finally, it has been provided that all the executive actions that are being taken by the Lieutenant Governor, whether on the advice of his ministers or otherwise, shall be expressed to be taken into the name of the LG. So basically, it aims to enhance the discretionary power of the LG. Now, there are mixed opinions with respect to this particular bill. There are some people who are saying that it will be a fatal blow onto the democratically elected government, whereas onto the other hand, there are the opinions which say that it aims to iron out the differences between the government as well as the LG. Many a times there have been disputes with respect to provision of some of the bill, but now as it has to be kept before the LG before keeping it into the assembly, and as LG's consent is to be taken, it will resolve many of the disputes and the differences. So guys, that is all about this particular article. And now as the days will be coming, many of the opinion pages, many of the editorials will also be coming into this particular light. But guys, I will advise that just keep 4 or 5 points onto the positive sides, 4.5s onto the criticism side, and that's all, because much more than that you cannot utilize it into your exam. So that is all about this article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Guys, this article has been taken up from the Hindu newspaper, the page number 1, as well as from the editorial section. And here we can see that how the higher institutions have failed to enforce the quota rule into the hiring of the new teachers. Now, guys, here much of the data has been revealed why the spate of RTIs into the IIMs, as well as a couple of days back, the reply was also given by the Minister of Education into the Lok Sabha with respect to the reservation of teachers into the higher institutions. Now, guys, here we can see, particularly into the context of IIM, that out of 16 IIMs, the 9 IIMs are having less than 10% of the faculty from the SC, ST, and the OBC communities. And the condition is very much worse into the IIM Nagpur, where not even a one member is from the SC, ST, and OBC community. Now, guys, it has been seen that these higher institutions are flouting the 2019 Central Education Institutions Reservation in Teachers Cadre Act, where it was provided that the higher institutions have mandatorily provide the reservation to the SCs, STs, socially and educationally backward classes, and people from EWS, that is from economically weaker sections. Now, guys, into the other institutions also the condition is similar. For example, 90% of the vacancies are not filled for the OBCs into the IISC, that is the Indian Institution of Science. And now, guys, if we talk into the absolute numbers, then we can also see that the 60% of the vacancies are not filled for the scheduled caste into the IIMs. And few days back, it was also revealed that into the IITs, the seats are lying vacant. The people from the reserved categories are not being chosen. Then, guys, on to other higher institutions such as into central universities, IISERs, IGNU, Sanskrit Central Universities. Everywhere the seats are lying vacant. Now, into this particular capacity, often the higher institution says that they don't find the people with adequate skill set, and therefore these seats are vacant. But many people also say that there are the discrimination which is done with the people who are applying for the teaching position into these higher positions. There have been hundreds of applications which have been filed by the people from reserved category, but very less of them actually reach to the interview state, and many a times none of them are actually offered a job. And here, if we take a kind of a related issue, then guys, a few days back into the IIT, an expert committee was also formed so that how this particular problem can be resolved. And it was said that the higher institutions such as the IITs should be put into the section number 4 of the Central Education Institution Reservation in Teachers Cadre Act. Now, guys, the section number 4 here provides that into certain of the institution exemption can be made for the reservation of the teaching post. Now, these institution will be the institution of excellence, they will be the research institution, and the institutions of the national and strategic importance. So therefore the IITs, IIMs, they are wanting that they will be put into this section number 4, but actually that will not be a way to go into this particular direction. So therefore some other way forward can be provided. Now here it has been provided that the central government needs to come out with a scheme where the preparatory programs are needed to be initiated. Under these preparatory programs, the people who want to apply for the teaching positions, they will be enrolled, and here they can be taught the deficient skill sets that are actually required, and it will help in plugging the gap into these teachers which they have faced into their preparatory years. Now it will make these institutions more socially responsive and will actually provide a level playing field to the aspirants, and therefore the goal of the social justice can be fulfilled. So guys, that is all about this particular issue. Guys, please do utilize in your GS paper number 2 into the topics related to the education and affirmative action. So that is all, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, friends, this article has been taken from the Indian Express newspaper, and it talks about the government's asset monetization program. Now, guys, asset monetization has been there into the news from last couple of months. Asset monetization simply means that now, as government is having so much of fiscal deficit, the tax receipts are very much low, economic activity is shut down. So, government is exploring to sell the government assets via the disinvestment and use that particular money onto the social welfare, on creating some other productive assets, etc. Now guys, into this particular capacity, the Niti Aayog had also floated the national monetization pipeline 2021-2024. It is basically a kind of a roadmap that how the assets will be sold off, which type of asset will be sold off, and the coordination onto that particular front will be facilitated by the Niti Aayog. However, if we talk about the present year, that is the 2021-2022, so here also the government had taken the asset monetization target, that is up to 2.5 lakh crore rupees will be raised via selling the asset. And into this particular direction, now 8 ministries have been identified whose assets will be monetized, and therefore even a list and a target has been prepared by the government. Now here we can see that these ministries are Ministry of Railways, Telecom, Road Transport and Highway, Power, Youth Affair and Sports, Civil Aviation, Petroleum and Natural Gas, and finally the Shipping, Ports and Waterways. And now, if we see the bifurcation here, then guys, into the Ministry of Railways, there will be the 50 stations that will be privatized, and 150 trains will be given to the private players. That then they will become the private passenger trains. After that, into the Ministry of Telecom, the assets of the BSNL and MTNL as well as the assets of the BharatNet are also being explored for the privatization. Then, guys, the roads up to the stretch of 7,000 kilometers will be given to the private operators for the toll collection, toll rights, etc. will be given. Then, guys, the transmission assets of the power grid will also be given to the private players. Then, sport into the sports stadium, the private players will be brought. Then, guys, there are 13 airports which have been identified, and according to the government, they are making the losses, and here the private participation will be invited. Then, into the pipelines of the GAIL, IOCL, and HPCL also, the private players will be invited, and then 30 of the berths or for the shipping ports will be given to the private players such as the Adanis, who have also been a influential player into the port management in India. So this is the government's grand plan for the disinvestment for the upcoming year. Now guys, you can utilize this particular article into GS paper number 3 into government budgeting as well as into the topic of effective mobilization of resources. So guys, that is all about this article, and now we'll move to the next article. Now, guys, this article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and it talks about the responsible AI, that is artificial intelligence, which can be created for a better future. Now, into this particular article, guys, the reference has been given of the Czech writer Karel Capek, who for the first time introduced the terminology robots in 1920 in one of his play. At that point of time, robots were equated with super intelligent machines, and now guys, into the mean course of time, there have been large number of books, pictures that has been made on robots. All the time robots are equated with the artificial intelligence. Now guys, the robots might not have been that much pervasive, but artificial intelligence has become all pervasive. It is present at every place. You can find artificial intelligence into your shopping websites, into the GPS, even they are into the keyboards of your mobile phones, where it is predicting that what next word you might want to type. Now this AI has the good as well as bad aspects. Now guys, first of all, let's see that what are the good aspects of the AI. For example, it has helped in increasing the crop yields and has raised business productivity. For example, the cloud computing and all such kind of things had brought many of the advantages. After that, it has also improved access to the credit and had made cancer detection faster and more precise. After that, it has also been provided that the artificial intelligence can contribute more than $15 trillion to the world economy by 2030, and can add 14% to the global GDP. According to the Google, it has identified that there are 2600 uses for the artificial intelligence for the good. After that, recently a study was also published into the journal Nature where it was said that the artificial intelligence can help in achieving the sustainable developmental goals. It has found that the 79% of the SDG targets can be fulfilled by involving the artificial intelligence. But guys, at the same time, there are some of the harms also which will be coming with the AI and we cannot ignore them. For example, according to the Nature only, it has been said that 59 or 35% of the SDG targets will be hampered if the artificial intelligence is employed more, because the artificial intelligence depends on to the data analytics, data mining, etc. Now, for this data management, there is a huge computer generation capacity that is needed, and these computer data centers are very much power hungry. They consume electricity, and as by this particular thing, the carbon footprint of the data becomes very much high, and therefore artificial intelligence also becomes a kind of a polluting industry. After that, there are some other bad sides of the AI. For example, AI is also displacing the low level workers. For example, the worker such as the cashiers, they are being replaced by the softwares. After that, there are the fruit picking robots which will replace the field workers. And guys, there are large number of other jobs also which will be hampered. And when we talk about replacing, it will not only replace the field workers, but guys, many of the desk jobs will also be impacted. For example, the accountants, financial traders, middle managers, etc. They will be eradicated by the AI. And after that, the biggest worry of the AI is the privacy matters. Now, guys, the privacy worry can be seen into the Cambridge Analytica case, where the psychological profiles of the people were made so that that particular data can be utilized for the manipulation of the elections. Now, guys, into such kind of line, every minute the data with respect to our personalities is being collected, and that data is being shared, it is being created into the patterns, and therefore our vulnerabilities are endlessly being exploited by the artificial intelligence. So, therefore, there is a need to create all inclusive ethical artificial intelligence which is transparent, which is unbiased, as well as it is equitable. Now, into this particular capacity, it has been said that we cannot expect that only the artificial intelligence tech companies can solve all these challenges. There is a need to deploy whole of a society approach to the artificial intelligence. We need to develop the broad based ethical principles where all the stakeholders, the government, the industry, the civil societies, etc., are to be taken. Even the cultural diversities are also to be taken in account. Then, guys, it has been said that after whole of society approach, we should go to explore whole of world approach. Into this particular direction, the United Nations Secretary General has given a roadmap onto the digital cooperation. Now, this roadmap on digital cooperation could be a good starting point here. All the countries should come together and collectively they should work in identifying the challenges and to lay the roadmap that how these challenges can be effectively mitigated. Moreover, the UNESCO has also developed a global comprehensive standard setting draft recommendation, which is about the ethics of artificial intelligence. And these ethical standards are also to be implemented into the artificial intelligence technologies. Now, guys, all the countries need to come together and need to effectively collaborate with each other. Into the context of India, the Niti Aayog has came out with the responsible AI for all strategy. It could be an effective point where the brainstorming onto making AI ethical can start. So, guys, this is all about this particular article. I hope that you have understood it. Guys, you can utilize it in GS paper number 3, challenges of cyber security, artificial intelligence, etc. So that is all about this particular article, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, friends, this article has been taken from the Mint newspaper, and it is a very good article for your GS paper number 2, where the role of the civil servants has been mentioned, as well as it can also be utilized in GS paper number 4. Here, we can see that a report has been published by the Center for Policy Research. And the report has been titled as the Pandemic and Public Administration, a survey of IS. Now, this particular report identifies that what IS officers believe about the NGOs, international donors, as well as the role played by all of them into the pandemic. Even the role of the private sector has also been questioned from the IS officers into this particular survey. And some broad themes are emerging into this particular direction. Here we can see that 3 out of every 5 officer which was surveyed, he considers that the non-government non-governmental organizations and civil societies have been the critical partners into the pandemic response. Now, guys, such kind of a line of thinking also divides onto the basis of the state in which they are working. Now, it has been found that the bureaucrats into the less developed states are most likely to hold a positive view about the civil society group, whereas the ones working into the resource states, they were least likely to consider NGOs and civil society as critical partner. After that, the response with respect to the international organization has been mixed. Some believe that they gave the critical advice to the government as well as they are the critical think tanks, where some people believe that they don't play any positive role. Now, with respect to the private sector, there is a better acceptance into the best developed states. There, they believe that the private sector has gone out of its way and had provided the essential supplies to the people who were struck into the pandemic. So, guys, these are some of the broad themes which are coming into this particular direction. And as the question demands, you can provide the reference of this particular survey. So, that is all about this particular article. And now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, friends, this article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and we can utilize it in GS paper number 2 into the topics of social justice as well as women related issue. Now, here we can see that the Rajya Sabha had passed the MTP bill, that is the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Amendment Bill 2020. Now, this particular bill aims to give an enhanced time window for the women to abort their fetus if there is some problem. Now, guys, before this 2020 MTP bill, there is MTP Act, that is the Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act 1971, which is in force and it regulates the abortion in India. Now, as per this 1971 Act, the abortion requires the opinion of one doctor if it is done within 12 weeks of conception. It requires the opinion of two doctors if it is done between 12 to 20 weeks, and after 20 weeks the abortion cannot be done. Now, guys, the new bill, that is the 2020 bill, it wants to enhance this window. It provides the abortion to be done onto the advice of one doctor up to 20 weeks and two doctors into the case of certain categories of women between 20 to 24 weeks. And even there are provisions for terminating pregnancy after 24 weeks. For example, if there are substantial fetal abnormalities, then onto the basis of opinion of a state level medical board, the fetus can be aborted. Now, guys, even the bill earlier was passed into the Lok Sabha, and now it has been passed into the Rajya Sabha. And now, after giving the assent by the president, the bill will finally be becoming an act. Now, according to the government, this decision has been taken because there are large number of pleas into the court. To be very precise, there are the 23 petitions in front of the Supreme Court as well as hundreds into the front of the High Court. Now, guys, there are some of the problems into this particular bill also. For example, it has been provided that there is a provision of a medical board if the pregnancy after the 24 weeks time is to be done, but even the government has accepted that there is a huge shortage in availability of doctors. So who will be presiding over this medical board will be a great problem. And further, it has been seen that why at all the approval is to be taken by the government when the women is suffering from the problems, why the right over her own body is not being given by the government. So these are some of the contentions. So, guys, that is all about this particular article. I hope that you have understood it. So that is all for the today's newspaper analysis. Thank you so much.